Yeah, so today's my last day at the hospital. We leave for Jordan, hopefully tomorrow morning early. So just really just saying a lot of goodbyes and making sure that I have connections with people. Um, I was actually just talking to a colleague of mine. He's just come back to Naser Hospital. He was working up at Al Shifa, further north from here, where the situation is very, very dire. They have nothing. They've got very, very junior medical staff. They've got no equipment. The very little food getting there. People are starving before your eyes. Um, there's still bombing it up in the north. I'm not sure what even they're bombing. There's nothing there, just people. So we were just talking about that. And last night, around Younis, around the hospital, the bombings just really stepped up, and it's coincided with them not allowing a recent delegation of medical teams and WHO in on Tuesday. So it's quite interesting. So they're restricting the number of people coming in on the last rotation, which was Tuesday. The next rotation in is tomorrow when we leave. They bring people in and people leave the same day. So we were yet to see if they will actually let people in this week at all. If not, they're going to lose around 30 to 40 medical staff this week, and there will be this huge gap in the system, especially for the really struggling areas further north from here. Naser Medical Complex has absorbed the medical staff from the European General Hospital, which was bombed about a month ago now. So all the staff from there came here. The other thing is we've had 2 evacuation orders in the 3 weeks that I've been here. And what that means is the Israeli military will drop leaflets, and they will be on the leaflet, everything's divided into blocks, and people will be told to move from that block to another area, which is considered a safe area. So we've had an influx of people into the hospital, displaced people. Even from the 3 weeks I've been here, you just notice walking around, there's more people just living in the corridors now, people just lying on the floor with nothing, sleeping, because they've got nowhere else to go. And hospital is considered a relatively safe area. It's here or it's on the sand, where people are putting tents into each other's tents. There's nowhere to put your tent next to each other anywhere. There's no sanitary facilities, no toilets. So people come to the hospital, they might get water here, which is becoming less and less likely because the military have destroyed the last desalination plant in the south. As you can hear, I don't know if you can hear, the bombs are going off. It's been worse, getting worse in the last 24, 48 hours, especially around the Khan Younis area. Again, there was another evacuation order about 24, 36 hours ago. So there was a huge influx of people, again, down to this area and up from the south. So people are being squashed into this area. And as more evacuation orders come through, more bombs are dropping. We're still seeing shootings from GHF distribution sites all the time. It's inconceivable how those are called aid sites. They're kill sites, people. It's dreadful, and the injuries that we see, it's targeted shooting, and it's still happening every time there's an aid distribution site, and terrible injuries, to targeted areas which they know will affect someone's function. If they don't kill them, then it will seriously impact their function to be able to live a normal life, whether to walk, whether to, some people have severe brain injuries. Some people will not be able to have children from the injuries they're receiving. So it's a very calculated, frightening thing that they are doing at these aid sites.
Is that a systematic targeting of people who are after aid in there, or is it like random? Or I mean, is there any people who are actually getting the food and the wheat from these distribution centers?
You got to remember, the people that are actually going to these centers are not sort of every kilometer. These centers are maybe one every 20 kilometers. So people from the north have to come all the way down the south, and they may be working 15, 20 kilometers, right, to possibly pick up a 25-kilo bag of flour, possibly. So the people that are coming are not the women and children and the old men. It's the young guys that have got some kind of little energy left. That you know, the aid is so impractical. Most of the stuff in the boxes is pasta, rice, tins. There's no tin openers, there's no water, nobody's got any utensils to cook these things, right? So, and then, as I say, you get this concentration of young men coming to pick up these heavy items, if they're lucky to get it. And it's chaos. And what happens is, what we believe we see is that everybody's told to wait, and then it's like a free for all. Okay, go get it. And so it's survival of the fittest or the fastest. And very often there's a scuffle or break out, or there's confusion, there's chaos, bags of flour get ripped open. You may have seen the videos of people just covered in flour. Yesterday, a truckload of flour arrived in Khan Younis, and people left from work here to go and run 4 or 5 kilometers to try and get a bag of flour. You know, they tag team, like, I'm going to go and get the flour now. Can you make sure you're in the hospital, in the operating theatre? And then the next one would say, I'm going to go. And the people that couldn't go, they would come back with this 25 kilo bag of flour and share it out amongst the people that couldn't go. It's crazy. It's insane. It makes no sense.
I mean, is there enough food for the injured in the hospital itself, or for the staff, or for doctors, or for nurses?
So we previously, World Central Kitchen were providing food. Now the hospital kitchen is trying to provide limited food that they can. No. And like I say, the desalination plant is now out of action, so the water's becoming more and more contaminated, salty. What little food we have, the doctors, we're gathering it up, and each evening we'll just see the people lying on the ground, amputated, in wheelchairs, children, old men, like just lying on the ground with, you know, bandages or IV lines. We don't even know what's wrong with them, but they're clearly starving. So we'll give whatever we can from our pockets. This is the situation, the desperation. These people are being deliberately starved. There's no other way to call it, and that's what they are being deliberately starved. Not hunger, not malnutrition, forced starvation. End of story.
It's a constant struggle to get the food, to get medical equipment as well. I mean, is there anything from last time we spoke has gotten into Naser Hospital in terms of, you know, bandages, anesthetics, or anything that is, you know, the basic equipment, like medical equipment?
So it's sporadic, and so sometimes one day you'll be in theatre, there'll be nothing, no crepe bandages, for example, and then the next day there'll be maybe 10. We don't know where they come from. We don't know how they've got there. They might have come in somebody's bag. They might have been in this warehouse. They might have been something that's been allocated to that thing, but there's still not the correct equipment to do the jobs. So people are making do with what there is. You know, somebody had their eye blown out, so we were doing an eye operation, and the surgeon's trying to do intricate operation with blunt instruments, and he has to do the best of his job. So even when you have specialist surgeons here doing specialized, you know, life-changing surgeries, they're using equipment that is broken, blunt, you know, not fit for purpose. So it's not adequate. No one else in the world would tolerate their relatives, their friends, enduring this kind of substandard treatment that's inflicted upon the people in Gaza right now. That's what's happening. We do our best with what we have, but no one in any other country, even in the war-torn countries, because they have aid coming through. This is what people need to understand. Sudan and other places like this. Okay, there's a lot of civil unrest, war, etc., but aid is still allowed in. Here, nothing is allowed in. Or if it is, it's allowed in through the border, and it sits at the border. It doesn't get any further than the border crossing. So that's how they mitigate that. Oh, we let the aid in. You let it in, but it didn't get anywhere. You let it through the border. Do you see the rhetoric that they use? The situation is getting worse and worse. My colleagues, I don't know how many IVs I've put up on my colleagues, both local colleagues and international colleagues. But people are just passing out from hunger, from dehydration, from fatigue, from, you know, everybody's got some kind of gastrointestinal illness, some kind of viral illness. The air is thick with dust and dirt, and God knows what chemicals from the constant explosions. Nothing green here, nothing grows here.
Mm. And do you continue to see these injuries, the nature of injuries that you mentioned the other day, things that you've never seen before, the holes that the bullet can penetrate into someone's body and then explodes from the other. I mean, is there more of these cases that you see? What kind of
Yeah,
injuries
so
do you see?
So it depends on the nature of the particular military campaign. If it's quadcopters, the drones deploy a type of missile that's filled with shrapnels, so they spread far and wide. If it's bullets, it depends what kind of bullets they're using. We think they're using something called a hollow point round, which as it penetrates the body, it expands to cause maximum damage. Obviously, they're using huge tonnage bombs on tents and sand. They're bombing tent camps that is next to the ocean. There's no tunnels there. This is right next to the ocean, right? And the tents are made of nylon. So the minute a flame goes there, the whole thing goes up. Everything goes up in flames. So you see this whole wall of black smoke, and you know that it's hit tents, a barrage of tents. But, this morning I've just seen, probably from about 4 or 5 o'clock this morning, there was a series, like within 30 seconds of each other, massive explosions. On the horizon, there's clouds of smoke. And the injuries, burns, explosive injuries, explosive amputations, thermobaric injuries, which means that the pressure wave from the bombs cause massive internal damage. And the people that are most susceptible to this are the tiny children. Their bodies can't deal with it. Their bodies can't deal with the pressure waves from these bombs and blasts. And then what we're seeing secondary to that is the infection from that. Or, there may not be enough time. So people are waiting 3 or 4 days to even to get operated on. And by then the infection has started. People are coming with maggots in their wounds. Because the electricity goes off, the air condition doesn't work, the laminar flow doesn't work in theatre, the flies come in. And that's in theatre, which should be a sterile environment. In the wards, it's very different. And in front of me, there's a tent hospital in the sand. There's biting insects. Children come covered in bites and scabies. I looked after a child yesterday, 7 years old. He'd had a number of injuries from an explosion. When I sat him up, his back was just bone. He was a 7-year-old child. And he was one of the most beautiful children I've ever seen in my life. He was so sweet and just beautiful. And then he's just bones. So he's going to have trouble healing. No. And this is the other thing to remember. When children come for operations, they don't come like with us. The parents don't come. And it may be because there is no parent to come, or the parent's injured, or there's nobody there. So they come frightened, in pain. No one would tolerate this situation. Not in Australia, not in UK, not anywhere. It's intolerable anywhere.
Gaza has been a testing ground for Israeli weapons for decades and decades. I mean, just a couple of days ago, Leonardo, an Israeli weapons manufacturer, released a video promoting for their quadcopters, and that was recorded in Gaza, a quadcopter chasing a young man and bombing him, and that's how they promote their weapons industry.
I personally know of something that happened to a colleague of mine, and it was exactly that. He was going home to his tent, and a drone followed him, got to his tent, and the drone just deployed a missile on him and his 3 kids. That's what happened. I know that has happened to someone. That's real. That's not just a promotional video. It really happened. Happened to someone I know, someone I really respected and admired.
Yeah. Is there a distribution center near the hospital? I mean, all these cases that you mentioned, I mean, so far it's almost 1,000 over the past few days have been killed at the distribution centers. I mean, how are people transferring these injuries from the distribution to the hospital?
So the nearest one to us is south in Rafah, and there's a few field hospitals with limited capacity. So if people can get to somewhere, they'll get to the nearest place, but the facilities are limited. So then they have to undergo a further transfer. If there's ambulance available, if there's fuel for the ambulance, if there's capacity or it's safe for the ambulance to take them. So that's why we're seeing patients late, because they go somewhere which has limited capacity to treat them. And then they come to Naser, which is a bigger facility, or sometimes they go to maybe, I think Kuwaiti hospital is still functioning. There's a couple of other hospitals that are still functioning in limited capacity. So yeah, we're seeing people from the south distribution site coming. But we often don't ask, like, we have so many casualties and patients. It's like, oh, okay, what was this? Oh, it was a GHF. Okay, what was this? It was this explosion from last night or today or a few hours ago. Because there's so many.
Yeah.
So many. Yeah.
I've been following mainstream media here and looking at the reporting, and you've probably been speaking to mainstream media in Europe and here in Australia. What do you think of the nature of questions that they usually ask? Are they interested in knowing that kind of suffering that people are enduring in Gaza, or?
Okay, how about this? So I spoke on the ABC after the last visit I was here. So I contacted them to let them know I was here. I'd really like to talk. And there was a bit of a delay before the contact got in touch with me, and they got in contact with me this morning, said, oh, hey, listen, it's probably not going to work out this time. Maybe catch you next time. That's the ABC news. I did speak on ABC radio. So hopefully there's going to be something coming out on that. But that's my experience with mainstream media in Australia, for sure. I've spoken to mainstream media in Germany. I've spoken to mainstream media in other parts of Europe. But Australia, that's the interest that I got from there. What can I say?
I mean, what is the expectation from these NGOs and Doctors Without Borders, or what's your expectation? Are they doing enough on the ground? Are their hands tied, as they usually say, because of the Israeli blockade and not allowing anything? Could they do more? Is the question from your perspective?
So as healthcare professionals, right, we when we train and we study and we practice, we try to uphold standards of medical practice, medical ethics. We have a moral compass and a professional compass, and that compass is broken in Gaza, not through our choice, but by the Israeli blockade, because we could choose to do two things. We could choose to do nothing because it doesn't align with our professional compass or moral compass, because we think, oh, we can't give enough drugs, so we shouldn't do the operation. Or we can lower our standards so that something gets done instead of nothing. And my experience with the international delegations around me is we're just doing something rather than nothing, even though everything is substandard. We have to do something. That's the situation that we're at. Or we do nothing, which is unacceptable for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Mm, mm. You mentioned that there is a Shifa hospital in the north and then there's a Naser hospital in the south. Is there any other places where injuries can be treated? I mean, is there any makeshift, for example, medical centers, tents, or anything else that people can rely on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few medical points that are functioning, but just yesterday, day before yesterday, maybe 36 hours ago, there was an evacuation order for Deir al-Balah, and I actually needed to refer a child for immunization. They'd come from the north up in Jabalia. They'd come down for assessment for surgery for congenital disformity, and the child was due childhood immunization. So I thought, okay, I know a clinic where we can get it done here before you go back to the north. At least let's get some immunization into you before you go to the north where there's nothing. And as I was on the phone, that clinic was actually being evacuated and shut down and taken offline. And it was a fully functional clinic, had ENT, obstetrics, immunization, pharmacy, mental health, run by one of the NGO MAP. And because of the evacuation order, just had to shut the doors, leave everything, and everybody get out onto the street and move towards where the Israeli military said you have to move to. So there are places, there are other hospitals with limited function. You know, there's a hospital where used to be a maternity hospital, but they'll take trauma patients. There's a pediatric hospital, but they'll do what they can. Everyone's just doing what they can with what they've got, and that changes. It can change by hour to hour. You know, they shut a clinic, they shut a field hospital, they shut a mobile tent, a mobile clinic. Yeah, and you know, the bombs are going off left, right, and center. We don't know what they're bombing next. If it's within an area where there's a hospital or a place where people can be treated.
Yeah, and this is a secondary question. Feel free not to answer it. I mean, like I mentioned the other day, I mean, we really want to focus on certain stories and bring it back to the Western society here in Australia. I mean, is there any story that caught your mind or your eye that is worthy of? I know it's probably thousands of stories, not just one story, but I mean.
There's so many stories of loss and heartbreak. You know, every single person here will tell you their story. You know, imagine being a young person and you just in university, you meet someone, you think, oh, great, this is good. We're going to have some dreams. We're going to make some plans together. And, you know, you think, okay, we're going to make this a formal arrangement. We're going to travel. We're going to try and make our lives better. And then you try and contact that person one day and you get no reply. And then you find out that they're under the rubble and they get stuck there for 4 months. And you never see their body for 4 months until they're dug out of the rubble. All you see is their bones and their grave, and your whole life is shattered from that point. Like I said, imagine being a child coming to the operating theatre in pain with no one around you, you know, with strangers around you, already mentally traumatized from whatever has happened to you, whoever you've seen die. We have a woman, she's pregnant, 6 months pregnant. Her husband was in an explosion. Her husband was killed. Her eye was bombed. She has no eye. She has a baby that she's having repeated anesthesia because she's got massive burns. So this anesthesia is going to her baby. Goodness knows how it's going to affect her baby. We have a 6-week-old baby had an open fracture of his femur. Like, that's a huge injury for a 6-week-old baby. This is a baby. We have a 3-year-old baby covered in burns, coming in absolute pain. This baby, all this baby does with every breath, he doesn't cry, he doesn't speak, he just calls for his father with every breath. Every breath that comes out is ya baba, calling for his father. He doesn't breathe, this constant, and I've seen him on numerous occasions, and it's still the same, day after day after day. Imagine the mental trauma of that child. That's all that happens with every breath that comes out of his body.
I don't know what else to say. But above all, I mean, it's important for people who are watching this to understand that people are starving in Gaza, people are hungry, but Palestinians not just hungry for food, they're hungry for justice and rights right now. And we need to, you know, blow this conversation and look at it from the outside. How did we get here? You know, it's not just a humanitarian crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis, but we need to understand the background politics behind it. You know, it's a settler colonialism, it's an apartheid, it's a genocidal entity now that is expanding and plaguing the region.
Yeah, man, it's not genocide, it's Holocaust. It's an extermination. This is no longer a genocide. This is extermination. I've got no other word for it. Do you know? It's beyond genocide. It's gone past that. And I don't know how we got here, and I don't know how we get back from it right now. And the people in Gaza are feeling the same, but they manage this. Like, we're like, how do you manage day by day? They're like, we just don't think about it. We just have to dull our minds and just keep busy. But every now and then, as human beings, your emotions will come out. I mean, it's hard for them to even think past the next hour or the next 2 hours or the next half a day. How do we get out of this? I don't know. I don't know. No, there's no government moving fast enough. They're 22 months too late, right?
Yes, all these perfunctory statements that our government recently came out with, demanding to stop or ceasefire or whatever they were demanding. It's just all for optics, I guess. And
Stop sending the parts for the F-16s then, right? That's one way to stop it. Stop abetting it. Do something concrete.
100%, 100%. I don't know I don't have any other questions, Dr. Saira. I don't know if you want to talk to anything in particular that you want to talk about, you feel that it's important that people to understand. I mean, what is required beyond, stop arming Israel, which is a message that we've been repeating for the past 20 months, really. Cut ties with Israel, expel the ambassador, stop providing diplomatic cover as well. It's gotten beyond disgusting, really, all these perfunctory statements made by politicians everywhere in the Western white world.
Yeah, and I think what I really want people to understand, and I don't think this they don't see this, because the media, whatever media shows these people living in dirt and sand and in desperation, these are uneducated people who love life. They had a fantastic life. Gaza was a beautiful place before this happened. It's got a beautiful coastline. They had cafes and restaurants. Everybody's highly educated. They have fantastic universities with antiquities and ancient books and so much history. Gaza was part of the trade route from Africa up until, the rest of the Levantine region. Huge amounts of history, so many scholars and so many innovations from here. They're having huge agricultural innovations they were making here. The media shows them as people scrabbling around in the dirt in desperate situations, which they are now, but that's because that has been enforced by the occupied power here. These people need their life back. They need their hope back. Their spirit is being destroyed. That is what is happening. And there's no words for that.
Yeah, Gaza is not just a mere pile of rubble. It's not just a GoFundMe account, really. Yeah, it's a nation. It's a heritage, it's a history. Yeah, thanks for reminding us how beautiful Gaza was. I mean, yeah, when I visited before the genocide, before the Holocaust, really, like you mentioned, it really has gone beyond the genocide when you have these soldiers videoing themselves committing these heinous crimes. I mean, animals don't do these things. I mean, as I interviewed Professor Hayim Rashid Zabna, he said animals killed for food. But they're gone beyond beastly. I don't know what to describe them.
For sport, they're killing for fun, they're killing for a game. And one of my colleagues who was recently here, Professor Nick Maynard, he said as much as well. He said it's like a game. It's like a game for them. Today we'll target the head. Tomorrow we'll target the testicles. The next day we'll target the groin. That's the sick thing about it,
Mm,
It's a
yeah,
sickness.
it is. I mean, how are you keeping safe inside the hospital, and how are the nurses keeping safe and sane?
I'm very well treated. I have a lot of friends here who, my priority, they say their priority is my safety. I'm very well looked after, and I couldn't feel more safe here amongst my friends and colleagues. And I have to remind myself sometimes, actually, it is actually a very dangerous place. We had the military surround the hospital, I think last week now, 5 days ago. But we're staying busy. You stay busy. We have our work to do, so we focus on that. And as I say to everyone that worries, says, "Oh, I hope you're okay. I hope you're doing." I'm fine. I get to leave. My colleagues don't. The people who are displaced here don't get to leave. I'm going to be leaving day after tomorrow. Nobody else does. I'm I'm fine. I am fine. I just feel for my friends and the people here.
We definitely have to applaud you for your courage and persistent in staying and helping. And I know you probably feel bad that you have to leave in the next couple of days. I know that feeling. But yeah, it's something to be commended. But I mean, t tell us about your journey that you're expecting on your way out of Gaza. I mean, how is it going to happen? Is it through Jordan or is it through Egypt or?
No, it's through Jordan. The Rafah crossing is still closed to movement of international delegation and WHO. The journey is made as difficult as possible. It literally could be an hour journey. But because we have to go through multiple checkpoints, have our luggage scanned, we have to do the circuitous route where we go to a meeting place, and then we have to go back down towards Egypt, and then go through another checkpoint, then back up through to the Allenby Bridge. So it's going to be like a 16-hour day. But I'm not complaining. I'll be sitting on a bus in air conditioning. It's no hardship for me, and I'll be getting into Jordan. So compared to what's going on here, it's a luxury. It's no issue for me. But yeah, it's still through Jordan at the moment, because at the Rafah checkpoint, there is no Israeli oversight. It was either Egyptian and Palestinian authorities, whereas in Jordan, the Israelis are on one side, so they can scan the luggage, decide who's coming in, etc., from Jordan. So that's still the point for NGOs to enter.
And there will be another medical delegation going in to replace you, or?
Well, there was meant to be one coming on Tuesday. So Tuesday was a rotation in and out. They rotated out successfully, but I think around 38 people didn't come in. They denied entry to the whole delegation coming in. And I can only postulate that that's not because they weren't needed, they certainly were needed, is that probably potentially maybe military activity is going to increase. There's meant to be another delegation coming in tomorrow when we leave. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yes. I mean, roughly how many delegations are coming from Australia to Gaza?
I just know about PANSMA. PANSMA come as the Australian delegation, but saying that they recruit people from all over the world. They just come under the auspices of that organization. In terms of the number of Australians, I'm the only Australian here right now. I think my colleague has just returned. She got back to Australia the day before yesterday. So not great numbers of Australian medics coming that I know about. It's in the tens. Most people here are from Europe, UK, the States, Jordan, Egypt seems to be the majority.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, Dr. Saira, probably last time, I mean, if you also could connect us with someone who we can continue to communicate with and get updates on, I mean, that would be really much appreciated.
I have a number of people who'd be happy to speak to you.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if there's anything else that we can highlight. Yeah.
Just need an end to the Holocaust. That's it. However, everybody needs to talk about this. Everybody needs to scream about this. There's no more time for being silent or politically correct or incorrect or whatever you want to call it. It's got to stop, perhaps one way or the other.
By all means available, really, we really need to push our complicit governments to kind of do something material, do something practical, rather than to continue paying lip service to us and arresting everyone who is protesting the genocide and the Holocaust. And yeah, I can't really thank you enough for talking to us, and stay in touch, please, and be careful and be safe. And hopefully next time I'll see you in person,
Yeah.
Dr. Saira.
Sure. I look forward to it. Okay,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Take care.